Shalom, family. You are listening to a special edition of Sinaitic Podcasts and Essays. And this one's been burning in my heart for quite some time now. What you're about to hear is personal for me. It comes from a place of wrestling, of unlearning, of remembering who we are and whose we are. We've been handed fragments of truth, distorted by centuries of Western doctrine, cultural compromise, and severed identity. But Yah is restoring the ancient paths. He's reawakening a covenant people. This piece, this essay, is titled Birth of a Nation, the Covenant, the Constitution, and the Messiah. I wrote this for the misfits, the remnant, the called out ones who sense that the gospel is much deeper than grace alone, that salvation is rooted in obedience, and that Torah is not bondage, it's identity. And I just want to say, wherever you are on your journey, you're not alone. We're learning, repenting, and rebuilding together. So I invite you to listen with an open heart, a sober mind, and a spirit ready to be challenged and renewed. Let the words wash over you. Let the scriptures speak louder than tradition. And above all, may Yah be glorified in every syllable. Let's get into it. The birth of a nation didn't happen in 1776 or in some government hall. It happened in the wilderness, under fire, cloud, and thunder. Sinai wasn't just a historical event. It shaped our past, our present, and it still determines our future. So who are we? And where do we come from? These are the questions. And these questions, though deeply philosophical, are at the core of a spiritual and historical reality that has been misrepresented, distorted, and outright erased by Western ideologies. To understand our place in Yah's redemptive plan, we must return to the beginning. Not to Genesis alone, but to the fiery summit of Mount Sinai, where a people, once slaves, were reborn as a nation under Yah. The birth of Israel is not simply a matter of bloodline or ancestry. It is a covenantal and constitutional reality. At Sinai, Yah took a mixed multitude of people and forged them into a theocratic nation, bound by his law, governed by his commandments, and wedded to him in an everlasting covenant. At Sinai, Yah took a mixed multitude of people and forged them into a theocratic nation, bound by his law, governed by his commandments, and wed to him in an everlasting covenant. This reality is often overshadowed by a westernized gospel, one that severs the Torah from faith in the Messiah, presenting grace as an antidote to law rather than its fulfillment. But the truth is far more compelling. If we are to truly understand what it means to be Israel, what it means to belong to Yah, we must return to Sinai, and from there, journey to Jerusalem, where the new covenant was ratified by the blood of the Messiah. We will dismantle Western distortions that have eroded the biblical narrative and rediscover the undeniable connection between the law, the covenant, and salvation. Before proceeding, it is essential to clarify what is meant by Torah. Torah is often translated as law, referring not only to the Ten Commandments, but to the full instruction of Yah given to Israel at Sinai. It encompasses Yah's moral, civil, judicial, and ceremonial laws which define Israel's way of life. Many misunderstand Torah as a rigid system of works-based righteousness, but Scripture presents it as Yah's blueprint for a holy nation. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 11 through 14 affirms that Torah is neither distant nor burdensome, but near, accessible, and life-giving. Paul later reaffirms this in Romans chapter 10, verses 6 through 8, demonstrating that faith and obedience to Yah's word were never mutually exclusive. Psalm 119:44 reads, "I will always obey your law, forever and ever." The psalmist affirms the eternal nature of Torah. Moreover, Isaiah chapter 2 and Micah chapter 4 foretell a future messianic age where Torah will go forth from Zion, proving that Yah's commandments remain relevant even in the eschaton. Yahshua did not abolish Torah, he embodied it perfectly, demonstrating how it should be followed, in spirit and in truth. This is what separates Israel from all other nations. They were not just chosen by bloodline, but by their covenantal obedience to Yah's law. So to misunderstand Torah is to misunderstand the very structure upon which Israel stands. Before we can grasp what happened at Sinai, we must recognize that Israel's identity is not formed by geography or ethnicity, but by divine constitution, and at the heart of that constitution lies Torah. Israel's birth was not merely an historical event, it was a covenantal transformation. At Sinai, Yah did not just call a people, he constituted them through his law. This covenant established Israel as a constitutional theocracy, where divine law, not human decree, determined the moral, social, and spiritual order of the nation. To reject Torah but still claim the kingdom is like demanding citizenship without honoring the Constitution. It grants rights but refuses responsibility. Torah was and is the Constitution of Israel. Without it, our national identity dissolves into religious abstraction. The Messiah, rather than abolishing this covenant, fulfilled and reaffirmed its purpose. However, the Western Church has largely misunderstood this dynamic, replacing the constitution of Yah with a theology that divorces faith from obedience. To be Israel is not merely to claim lineage, it is to walk in covenant. The Sinaitic law is not an archaic relic, it is Yah's code of ethics, his personality made manifest in his commandments. Those who belong to Yah embrace his law, not as a means of salvation, but as the outflow of covenantal faithfulness. This is the essence of being the Israel of Elohim. The moment of Israel's birth is not found in Abraham's covenant, though it lays the foundation. It is not found in the Exodus from Egypt, though it sets the stage. It is found in Exodus chapters 19 through 24, where Yah calls Israel his own, gives them his law, and seals them in covenant. Yah declared through Moses, "Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." This moment marked the transformation from a people to a nation. The terms of the covenant were clear: obedience to Yah's commandments. This was not just a religious contract, it was a constitution. Just as modern nations are defined by their governing principles, Israel was defined by its divine law. A theocracy where Yah himself was king. To solidify this covenant, Israel accepted these terms by saying, "All the words that Yah has spoken, we will do." And then Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "Behold, the blood of the covenant that Yah has made with you." It was in many ways like a marriage ceremony, and Yah later affirms this union through the prophet Jeremiah, saying, "I am married to you." This is the heart of Israelite identity, not race, but covenant, not mere faith, but faithfulness. Yah did not simply call Israel, he bound them to himself in covenant. Yet, as history shows, Israel failed to uphold their vows. But Yah, faithful and long-suffering, did not abandon his people. He made a way for reconciliation. So if Sinai was the wedding, then Jerusalem was the place of reconciliation. The covenant was broken, yes, but it was not abandoned. The blood of bulls sealed the covenant at Sinai, but the blood of the Messiah renewed and fulfilled it in Jerusalem. From blood to blood, vow to vow, Yah never forsook his people. This was not the conclusion of his covenant, it was the rekindling of it through a greater sacrifice. But as the message of this renewed covenant spread beyond Jerusalem, new questions emerged. How were Gentiles to walk in this new covenant? What role did Torah still play? The apostles, especially Paul, addressed these tensions. Yet tragically, their writings would later be twisted. To grasp Paul's true intent, we must anchor his epistles within the Hebraic framework he never abandoned. Yet, despite Yeshua's clear mission to renew the covenant, many have misunderstood Paul's writings, especially his allegory of Hagar and Sarah. Did Paul reject the covenant at Sinai? Or was he exposing something else entirely? In Galatians chapter 4, verses 21 through 31, Paul uses the allegory to contrast two covenants. Many mistakenly interpret this as a rejection of Sinai, but in truth, Paul is denouncing the legalistic bondage of Pharisaic distortions that added unnecessary burdens to Yah's commandments, not the divine law itself. Halakha, from the Hebrew word halak, meaning to walk. This refers to the collective body of Jewish oral laws, traditions, and rabbinic interpretations that developed alongside Torah. While some halakhic rulings aimed to clarify Torah's application, others became excessive, turning divine instruction into human tradition. Yeshua and Paul confronted this distortion, not the Torah itself. Paul argues not against Yah's law, but against those who imposed circumcision as a requirement for the Gentiles. He warns against the stoicheia, the elemental spirits of the world, which refers to the human-imposed traditions, not the Torah. So Paul is not arguing against Sinai. Paul is arguing against how the Pharisees co-opted a precept from Sinai to enslave the Gentiles. Here in Romans 3:31, Paul says, "Do we then nullify the law through faith? Certainly not. Instead, we uphold the law." Galatians 3 reveals that the Abrahamic promise and the Sinaitic covenant are not opposing forces, but complementary elements of Yah's redemptive plan. The bondage Paul speaks of is not Torah itself, but the system of righteousness through halakha that made the law burdensome. Yeshua himself rebuked these traditions in Matthew 23, declaring that they tie up heavy burdens. They're hard to bear, and they lay them upon men's shoulders. True obedience is rooted in love and devotion to Elohim, not ritualistic legalism. Yeshua didn't redeem us from the Torah. He redeemed us from the curse of the law. For the penalty of sin is death. The new covenant didn't abolish Torah, it inscribed it on our hearts. Paul's allegory does not reject Torah, it condemns its distortion. Rather than abolished, the covenant was reestablished, written not on stone, but on hearts through the blood of the Messiah. One of the most enduring theological distortions born from the misreading and misinterpretations of Paul's epistles is supersessionism, the belief that the church has replaced Israel. But does Scripture support this? Paul asks in Romans 11, "Has Yah rejected his people?" By no means. Paul uses the metaphor of the olive tree, where Gentiles are grafted into Israel, not the other way around. Yah's covenant with Israel is irrevocable. Any theology that erases Israel's role in salvation history is fundamentally flawed. The church was never meant to replace Israel. It was meant to join Israel in covenant faithfulness. But without obedience to Torah, what is faithfulness? Yeshua didn't come to start a new religion. He came to renew the covenant, to reaffirm Israel's role, and to extend the invitation to all who would walk in obedience. Revelation 19 reveals the bride of the Messiah is clothed in righteous deeds, which come from the law, fulfilled through faith in Yeshua. John writes in Revelation 14:12, "Here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments of Elohim and their faith in Yeshua." And Yeshua himself declares in Revelation 22:14, "Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life." The covenant is alive, Torah is active, under rabbinic systems, but under the leadership of Yeshua, Yah's anointed. One of the greatest misconceptions in Western Christianity is the belief that Messiah came to free us from the law, as if the very constitution that defined Yah's people had become obsolete. This could not be further from the truth. Yeshua didn't come to abolish Torah, he came to uphold it, to fulfill it and embody it perfectly. Matthew 5 reads, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Through his atoning sacrifice, Yeshua removed the penalty of sin, making Torah now internal, written on hearts, not tablets. Yah declares through Jeremiah, I will put my laws into their minds and write them on their hearts. Through Isaiah, Yah promised, I will give you as a covenant to the people. At the Last Supper, Yeshua said, This is my blood of the covenant, poured out for you, for many, for the forgiveness of sins. Hebrews 9:15 confirms, He is the mediator of the renewed covenant. Yeshua's sacrifice does not invalidate the law, it reaffirms it. Yeshua is the walking Torah, nomos empsychos, Greek for the living law. Those who choose to follow him must do the same, not by rejecting commandments, but by living them in faith, love, and truth. Through Yeshua, Israel's destiny is fulfilled. A kingdom of priests, a holy nation, bound not by bloodline, but by covenant. And yet, over time, this truth was erased. Yeshua's mission redefined, not as restoration, but as abolition. But if Yeshua came to restore and renew the covenant, how did the Western Church erase this foundational truth? The answer lies in Roman theological constructs that deliberately sought to distance faith from its Hebraic roots. As Greco-Roman influence took hold, Neo-Christianity rewrote the Messiah's mission, separating grace from obedience, faith from Torah. This is why so many believers today struggle with identity. They've been told that grace and law are at odds, that obedience is legalism, that Sinai is irrelevant. But Scripture tells a different story. Israel was not birthed in Rome. It was not defined by Western philosophy. It was born at Sinai, constituted by Torah, and redeemed in Jerusalem. To strip believers of this truth is to sever them from their inheritance. The time of wavering is over. We are not lawless believers, floating aimlessly in grace without structure. We are not subjects of westernized distortions that dilute the word of Yah. We are Israel, the people of Yah, called into covenant, bound by the very law that Yeshua upheld. We were once betrothed at Sinai. Through Yeshua, that broken vow was restored, not annulled. The Torah remains a national constitution, its articles now inscribed upon our hearts, not on stone. Restoration didn't erase our past, it redeemed it. What Yah began at Sinai, he fulfilled in Jerusalem. To claim Yeshua, yet reject his law, is self-deception. He warns in Matthew 7:23, Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who work lawlessness. To follow the Messiah is to uphold Yah's commands, for he is the living embodiment of Torah. And for those just beginning to awaken to this truth, this is not condemnation. This is an invitation. You are not stepping backward into bondage, but forward into identity. Returning to Torah is not a rejection of the Messiah. It is a deeper embrace of him. You are not moving into legalism, but into covenantal faithfulness. Yeshua didn't die to cancel your responsibility. He died to give you the Spirit to walk it out. So the question is not whether Yah is calling, because he is. The question is, will we answer? Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city.
Shalom, brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode of Sinaitic Podcasts and Essays. I'm your host, Dr. Arya Ben Nasik, and you know who we have with us today. Sister Arikel Batsani, the author of this beautifully constructed essay titled Birth of a Nation, the Covenant, the Constitution, and the Messiah. You got to talk to me about this title.
Shalom. How you doing? I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me back.
I've been excited. Just so anxious to sit down with you to talk to you about this essay, Birth of a Nation, the Covenant, the Constitution, and the Messiah, because it's a rich topic which suggests that the content is going to be extremely substantive, right? And there's only one human being in this earth that can really break this down, and that's you.
I'm honored to be here today to discuss this. This is a piece that challenges the way we understand the formation of Israel.
Okay.
Not through the lens of modern nationalism, but through the covenant Yah established at Sinai.
Okay.
This isn't just a historical analysis. It's about identity. Israel wasn't formed by borders, governments, or self-determination.
Okay.
Israel became a nation through Yah's word, his law and his covenant. And that distinction is everything. Because if Yah defined our beginning, he also defines our future.
Wow. If he defines, say again, if he defines our beginning, if he defined our beginning, okay.
He also defines our future.
He also defines our future. I love that. Gosh, you're such a genius. What inspired this essay? I mean, what was the motivation behind it? I know you gave me a little sample of that, right? But I want, because this is such a technical composition. It's a technical argument. What were you hoping to achieve here by writing this essay?
Well, I wrote this to bring clarity.
Okay.
To push back against assumptions and to remind us that Yah, not man, defines his people.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to diving into this conversation.
Yes.
Unpacking the evidence. And most importantly, exalting the Most High in all of it.
Well, you're going to get it, because my very first question to you, Sister Arikel, is what is a constitutional theocracy? And why is it so important? This is perhaps an unusual phrase for many people, but yet it seems to be germane to us. So explain to us, what's a constitutional theocracy?
Sure. How do I say? A constitutional theocracy is a government where divine law, not human legislation, governs a nation.
Okay.
In Israel's case, that law is Torah.
Okay.
Given directly by Yah at Mount Sinai. Unlike man-made legal systems, this constitution wasn't debated, it wasn't amended, or subject to cultural shifts. It was a divine decree binding Israel to Yah in an eternal covenant.
Okay.
So this is crucial because it defines Israel's national identity.
Okay.
The world identifies nations by borders, politics, and economies.
Okay.
But Yah's nation is defined by covenant obedience.
Okay.
Israel is not a democracy. It's not a monarchy. It's not a republic.
Right. Yeah.
It's a theocracy ruled by Yah's laws. And here's where so many go astray. People assume that because Messiah came, this theocratic framework was abolished.
Okay.
But Yah's law is eternal. The Messiah didn't replace it. He embodied it. And the Messianic kingdom to come, Torah will once again be the governing law. So a constitutional theocracy isn't just Israel's past, it's also its future.
Okay. Now, you brought up something interesting, and I like this because you said that Israel was not a democracy. What did you say? Monocracy? Is that what you said?
A monarchy.
A monarchy. Okay. And you're absolutely correct. It wasn't supposed to be a monarchy, a monarchy, right? But our first king was Saul.
Yes.
And we got Saul because Elohim told Shemuel that the nation of Israel does not want Elohim as king to rule over them. And what's beautiful about our theocracy, right? We understand that we live in a constitutional republic here in America, right?
Right.
I get that. And we can have, an argument about the spirit of that, et cetera, as we continue to live under these theocratic tenets. A lot of people say, well, how can you do both? But that is a conversation for another time. But as you bring up the age of the monarchs, the kings, that became our downfall, right?
It certainly did.
Because when Elohim said to Samuel, they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me, that I should not rule over them, that I should not be king over them. And that's very hurtful, because with our first king and subsequent kings, we went downhill, because now we have human rulers that we are looking to govern us, guide us, lead us, and direct us. And this is exactly what the nation of Israel said. We want a human ruler. We want a king to rule over us so we can be like the nations. And that's always been the issue. We want to be like everybody else. Instead of, as you mentioned earlier in your opening, instead of accepting the identity that Elohim cultivated, created, and gave to us at Mount Sinai. And so with that statement, I want to ask you, why is Mount Sinai so important, right? As a segue, right? Because we're always talking about Mount Sinai, Sinaitic constitution, Sinaiticism, being a Sinite, right? Talk to us about that.
Yes. So some of us, maybe not all, Mount Sinai was a mountain.
Right.
But Mount Sinai was more than just a mountain.
Okay. Blue Ridge Mountains, Appalachian Mountains, that type of stuff. I'm not trying to be facetious, but I'm just saying, like,
it's
because when we talk about a mountain, I'm thinking the Blue Ridge Mountains, right? I'm thinking, the Appalachian Mountains, right? And all types of mountains, but there's something special about this mountain.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. What's
so special about Mount Sinai is that it's the birthplace of Israel as a nation. It's where Yah himself came down in fire and thunder and all his glorious, magnificent self. Where he didn't just give us laws, he made a people. And when you think about it, Israel existed way before Sinai. The patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob walked in covenant, but their descendants were a scattered people.
Okay.
It wasn't until Sinai that they were constituted into a nation with laws, governance, and a divine purpose.
Okay.
Sinai is where Yah declared in Exodus, "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." It's where Israel pledged obedience, saying, all that Yah has spoken, we will do.
Right.
This was the wedding, the moment Yah took Israel as his bride. And here's the thing. That covenant, that marriage was never annulled.
Okay.
It was broken.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Boy, was it broken.
Yeah.
But through the Messiah, it was renewed. So if we claim to be Israel, we must trace our steps back to Sinai, where it all began.
Okay. All right. I'm going to want you to tease this out for us a little bit more with some of the other questions that I have. And I know you're up for the challenge. You're always up for the challenge. I've never seen you turn down the challenge. Okay, so here are your own words from your essay, right? You said the Messiah, rather than abolishing this covenant, fulfilled and reaffirmed its purpose. However, the Western Church has largely misunderstood this dynamic, replacing the constitution of Yah with a theology that divorces faith from obedience.
Is that a direct quote?
Yeah, that's a direct quote. This comes from your essay. So, this comes from you. I'm holding you accountable. I need for you to explain this. Well, what's up?
So this This is one of the most profound misconceptions in modern theology.
Okay.
Many in the Western church have been taught, me too, me included.
Yeah.
We've been taught that grace and law are at odds.
Okay.
That
That's
faith
true.
that faith in the Messiah nullifies obedience to Torah. But that's not what the Messiah taught. When Yeshua said in Matthew chapter 5, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets.
Right.
I have not come, what does it say? I have not come to abolish them, but I've come to fulfill them.
Right.
He was making it clear. Yeshua made it clear that his mission was not to erase the covenant, but to embody it and to complete it.
Yeah.
So the problem that came when Western theologians, many of whom lacked a Hebraic understanding, misinterpreted Paul's writings.
Right.
They saw Paul's critiques of legalism as a rejection of Torah itself.
Yeah.
But Paul never opposed the law. He opposed man-made traditions that distorted it.
Okay.
Paul even said that in Romans, I believe it's chapter 3.
Okay.
Do we then nullify law through faith?
Yah forbid. Right.
Yah forbid.
Right. No, we establish the law.
Instead, we uphold the law.
Yes, right. Good passage.
The truth is, Arya, faith and obedience were never separated.
Right.
Yeshua himself obeyed Torah. And if we claim to follow him, because Jesus has many followers, we must do the same. Grace doesn't replace obedience. It empowers it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me just process that for a second. The Messiah, rather than abolishing this covenant, fulfilled and reaffirmed its purpose. Think not that I've come to destroy the law. I've not come to destroy the law or the prophets, but to fulfill them. Okay. Let's see. Not one jot, not one tittle of the law shall pass until all things be fulfilled. So we're waiting for the rest of the prophecies pertaining to the Mashiach and even humanity to be fulfilled. So then he says, therefore, whoever breaks one of these least commandments, therefore, whoever breaks any one of these commandments and then teach other people to break them shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. He's taking us back to Sinai to illustrate the importance and the significance of Sinai. And I like the way you bring out the fact that Yeshua fulfills the expectations of Sinai, right? To walk perfectly before the Creator. But you also said to be Israel is not merely to claim lineage. It is to walk in covenant. Now, what do you mean by this? To be Israel is not merely to claim a lineage. It's to walk in the covenant. Explain that for me.
Yes. So this is a critical distinction.
Okay.
Many people assume that being Israel is purely a matter of genealogy.
Okay. Right.
But Scripture teaches otherwise.
Okay.
Some of Israel's most renowned sages weren't even ethnically Israel. They were converts.
Okay.
And the church and the Jewish populace, give the impression that they were.
Okay.
But they weren't.
Right. Okay. Like anybody in particular?
Take Onkelos. He's the great translator of the Torah.
Right.
He's a sage of the 2nd century who gave us the Aramaic Targum called the Targum Onkelos.
Yes.
Yeah. Or Akiva ben Yosef. He's one of the leading sages in the 1st and 2nd centuries,
right,
who left commentary in the Talmud and Midrash.
Right, very early on.
These two brothers, they were converts. They weren't born into Israel, they entered into it.
Okay.
These were just two of the millions who converted to Judaism through Sinai.
Yeah.
But they were all considered Israelites as a matter of Jewish law.
Okay.
Why? Because Israel is defined by covenant, not blood. Yah didn't just bring the descendants of Jacob to Sinai. He brought a mixed multitude of people.
And that's very important because I think a lot of people, especially so-called Black Hebrew Israelites, they look past that fact. I mean, and that's written in the Exodus narrative, that there were a mixed multitude that came out of Egypt. And this mixed multitude were at the base of Mount Sinai when the Most High introduced himself to them, right? And gave them laws, statutes, commandments, and ordinances to constitutionalize them as a nation.
Yes, and when they accepted his law at the base of that mountain, they became Israel.
Wow.
And the same truth applies today, Arya. Anyone, Jew or Gentile, as we say today, Hebrew or white devil.
Yeah, right. Right, yeah, right.
I say that to be facetious.
Yes, yeah, sure.
But Jew or Gentile, whoever submits to Yah's covenant and walks in his commandments is Israel.
That's right.
It's not about ancestry. It's about obedience.
Okay. So when you say here that people were considered Israelites, in other words, let me just rephrase this. Non-ethnic Israelites were considered to be Israelites as a matter of law, right? Onkelos, a sage of the 2nd century, I believe, right? A convert to Judaism or to Israelism, right? Considered to be a Jew, considered to be an Israelite. You have Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef, as you just mentioned, another convert, or parents were converts, or grandparents were converts. These were converts. And this is what history bears out, but yet when we read their material, their works, this is considered to be works written by Jews, etc. I love the identity piece, because Israel was constitutionalized as a nation at Sinai, and we're looking at a variegated populace of people. And what you're saying is that we become a part of the nation when we embrace what constitutionalized Israel as a nation, and that is the Torah, the book of the covenant.
Exactly that.
Right, okay. So I'm just looking at, are there any references, any sources that you can perhaps direct us to that would speak to? In oral tradition, it's been recorded in the Talmud. Okay.
The sages affirmed that Israel entered into the covenant through circumcision and baptism.
That's true.
So any Gentile who wished to worship Yah had to do the same. And once they did, they were considered Israelites. Fully and completely. Not only that, but what is it? Bava Metzia and Horiot.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
Oriot, yeah.
Oriot. Go even further, stating that no one should ever remind them or their children of their pagan past.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because in Yah's eyes, they had been reborn.
Yes.
And this is why Yeshua told Nicodemus in John chapter 3, you must be born again.
Right.
So entering Yah's covenant is a rebirth.
Yes.
It's leaving behind all former identities and taking on the name Israel.
Yes.
It's a new beginning.
Okay.
It's a new nationality. It's a new family.
Right. And I think what happens is that, especially within the so-called Black Hebrew Israelite, community, there is just so much left on the table, right? Because there's a lack of understanding of how the Israelite or the Sinaitic community works.
It's a lack of acculturation.
Okay.
We are so stuck in who we are today, how we live our life today. And we're so stuck on self, because we're so important that we can't even be bothered to become acculturated to the culture of the Bible, to the culture of of our ancestors.
Yes, right.
You
right,
know?
Right. Well, you mentioned the Talmud, and so, and I think what you're specifically referring to is Kurioth 9a, that really specifies that Gentiles, any ethnic person, non-Israelite person, and I can speak to even Israelites that have to convert to the faith as well. But again, that's another topic. But anybody who wants to acknowledge Yah as their sovereign power, and there's only one way to do it. You have to go through the covenant, right? That was made with Israel at Mount Sinai. So Kurioth speaks to that. Yibbamoth, I believe, tells us that, we are never to remind a person who was a pagan of their previous identities. Because when you enter into the Sinaitic covenant, you become a part of Israel's constitution.
You become Israel.
You become Israel. You also begin to identify with it.
Exactly.
Let me read. I want to go over to this passage that comes to mind. It's Isaiah chapter 44, and I'm going to read this from the New Living Translation. And I think it's germane to what we are presenting here in this interview. Isaiah 44, and I want to read verses 1 through 5. And this is what Yah says. But now listen to me, Jacob, my servant, Yisrael, my chosen one. Jacob and Israel, the same people, right? Okay, we just interchange. Sometimes say Jacob when we're referencing Israel, and then of course Israel when you're referencing Israel, right? But now listen to me, Jacob, my servant, Israel, my chosen one. Yah who made you and helps you. That's so beautiful to me. Yah made us, and Yah helps us. Yah made us at Sinai as a nation. Your thesis, as well as your essay, is titled Birth of a Nation. The Covenant, the Constitution, and the Messiah. So I know we got a lot to get to, but this is juicy, okay? Yah who made you and helps you says, do not be afraid, O Yaakov, my servant, O dear Yisrael, my chosen one. For I will pour out water to quench your thirst and to irrigate your parched fields. And I will pour out my spirit on your descendants and my blessing on your children. They will thrive like watered grass, like willows on a riverbank. Now, verse 5 is profound. Some will proudly claim, I belong to Yah. How do we do this? How do we get there? You have to go through Sinai in order to make this claim. Others will say, I am a descendant of Jacob. Some will write Yah's name on their hands, and they will take the name of Israel as their own. So we are looking at conversion. We're looking at the process. Everything goes through Sinai. Let me just read another passage. I don't know. I may be jumping here, but see, now I'm in the zone.
Well, while you look for that, I want to comment on
Yes.
this passage you just read for us, Isaiah 44, 1 through 5.
Yes, please.
I believe this passage provides a prophetic validation of this piece.
Okay.
Israel is Yah's nation because he formed, named, and sustained Israel. This passage particularly reinforces that Israel's birth was not a political event, but a spiritual one, sealed in covenant. It also underscores that true national identity is defined by Yah's word, not by human governance or territorial claims. This truth remains unshaken, past, present, and future. It's beautiful.
Yes, I agree. All right, look here.
What you got for us?
I got Isaiah chapter 56.
Okay.
And I'm just going to start off with verse 1.
Okay.
Right? This is what Yah says. Be just and fair to all. Do what is right and good, for I am coming soon to rescue you and to display my righteousness among you. Blessed are all those who are careful to do this. Blessed are those who honor my Sabbath days of rest and keep themselves from doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let foreigners who commit themselves to Yah say, Yah will never let me be part of his people.
Mm.
And don't let the eunuch say, I'm a dried up tree with no children and no future. For this is what Yah says, I will bless those eunuchs who keep my Sabbath days holy, and who choose to do what pleases me and commit their lives to me. I will give them within the walls of my house a memorial and a name far greater than sons and daughters could give. For the name I give them is an everlasting one. It will never disappear. Look at this. I will also bless the foreigners who commit themselves to Yah, who serve him and love his name, who worship him and do not desecrate the Sabbath day of rest, and who hold fast to my covenant. And this is what we're talking about, right? We're looking at a constitutional theocracy. We're looking at a constitutional identity, a constitutionalized nation via a covenant that was made with the nation of Israel at Mount Sinai. And to be a part of, to be a part of Elohim, to be a part of his people, you have to enter into this covenant. And so here, when we look at Isaiah chapter 56, we're talking about what the nations have to do, or what they had to do then, what they have to do now, and what they will have to do in the future, right? Because there is some, how would you say, some futuristic elements here, right? And I'll show you that. But anyway, verse 6, I will also bless the foreigners who commit themselves to Yah, who serve him and love his name, who worship him and do not desecrate the Sabbath day of rest. And I love this. And who hold fast to my covenant. I will bring them to my holy mountain of Jerusalem and will fill them with joy in my house of prayer. I will accept their burnt offerings and sacrifices because my temple will be called a house of prayer for all people, all nations. For the sovereign Yah who brings back the outcasts of Israel says, I will bring others too.
See, you're going to make me go back and edit my essay because OMG. This passage expands on the idea that Yah's people, his nation, are defined by those who uphold his covenant, reinforcing that Israel's identity is spiritual and eternal, not just ethnic or geographic.
Yes, right.
See,
right.
I'm not even sure that's in there.
Right. Well, guess what? I know you're gonna put it in there.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm
anyway,
going.
but I'm gonna let you get back here. But for what we're dealing with, this is so important. Because we need to understand that we're looking at one sovereign power, one God, and the entire earth is going to have to become Israel.
Yeah.
Right? And so, again, this is a futuristic prophecy. He mentions covenant. He mentions Sabbath. We understand that Exodus chapter 20, the 10 Commandments was given to Moses and the nation of Israel. It includes the Sabbath. Elohim brings this up, right? So again, constitutionally, this is something that is being presented from Mount Sinai. Then we are talking about the covenant in general, or the covenant as a whole, also emanating, promulgating from Mount Sinai. And the futuristic component argues that everybody is going to have to embrace it to provide proper worship and service to Elohim, and it's non-negotiable. So when Yah says in verse 8, for the sovereign Yah who brings back the outcasts of Israel says, I will bring others too besides my people Israel, is very, very telling.
So there might be a part 2 to Birth of a Nation.
Okay.
Because this passage just completely dismantles the idea that Israel is merely a geopolitical entity. But what it is Yah's a spiritual nation bound to him by law. It proves that national identity in Yah's eyes is not about ethnicity, but about those who choose to serve him and uphold his covenant. So, I mean, this already supports my thesis for part 1.
Right.
But I'm liking this for part 2 to expound on that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Good. Praise Yah. All right. So let's get back to
part 1.
Part 1 and certain key features of your essay. And RKL, here's one of my favorite parts of your essay. This is so meaty. You said if Sinai was the wedding, then Jerusalem was the place of reconciliation. The covenant was broken, but not abandoned. The blood of bulls sealed the covenant at Sinai, but the blood of Messiah renewed and fulfilled it in Jerusalem. You got to break this down because I just love this. I looked at this and I said, my sister.
Ooh.
My sister.
I was cooking, okay?
Yeah, I see that.
I actually love this part too. You know, this is the heart of Yah's redemptive plan.
Okay.
Right? At Sinai, Israel entered a covenant, a marriage with Elohim. But like an unfaithful spouse, Israel broke that covenant.
Yeah.
Terribly. Yet, Yah didn't abandon his people. He didn't abandon us.
Right.
Instead, he made a way for reconciliation, for that reconstitution. Just as blood sealed the covenant at Sinai, blood renewed it in Jerusalem. But this time, it wasn't the blood of bulls. It was the blood of the Messiah.
Wow.
And it was his sacrifice that didn't annul this covenant. It restored it. And this is why Yeshua said in Matthew 26, this is my blood of the covenant.
Yeah.
Which is poured out for many.
Yes.
He wasn't establishing something new. He was renewing what had been broken.
Right.
So if Sinai was the wedding, Jerusalem was the moment of forgiveness.
Yes.
The chance to start anew, right? Yah's covenant still stands, and through the Messiah, we are invited back into it.
And that's just so revealing. And when I read this in your essay, if Sinai was a wedding, okay, and at Sinai we specifically said all that Yah has said we will do and be obedient. And we had a party. We're married to Yah. Yah is our husband, and when we broke the covenant presumptuously in most cases. But here's the mercy and the compassion of a loving, sovereign power. I'm going to redeem you. I'm going to bring you back. So when you say here, if Sinai was the wedding, then Jerusalem was the place of reconciliation. The covenant was broken but not abandoned. The blood of bulls sealed the covenant at Sinai, yes, but the blood of Messiah renewed and fulfilled it in Jerusalem.
Yah forgave us at Jerusalem.
The author of Hebrews says, without the shedding of blood, there can be no forgiveness.
Correct.
Right. Beautiful. Okay. All right. I'm looking here. You said Israel was not birthed in Rome. It was not defined by Western philosophy. It was born at Sinai, constituted by Torah, and redeemed in Jerusalem. To strip believers of this truth is to sever them from their inheritance.
You're quoting a lot from this essay, Arya.
Because it was a deep essay, and you left some strong nuggets here.
I had a lot to work with.
Well, yeah, but you don't leave us any choice. I mean, you got to explain these things because these are very, very, very thought-provoking statements, right? So, help me out. What are we looking at here?
So you quoted, Israel was not birthed in Rome.
Right.
It was not defined by Western philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
It was born at Sinai.
That's what you wrote.
So if I put it simply, the faith we follow is Hebraic.
Okay.
It's not Greco-Roman.
Okay.
Israel's identity is rooted in Torah, not in Western ideologies.
Okay.
Not as we are taught today, not as we see today, not as we believe today. When Christianity severed itself from its Hebrew roots, it lost its foundation. And like any foundation, there's cracks, there's instability.
Yeah.
There's questions of its stability.
Right.
All of us have questions about this Bible. All of us have questions about Yah's plan, about the Messiah, about the law. Do we follow it? Is it abolished? Is it not? But if we want to reclaim our inheritance, we gotta return to where it all began, Arya. We gotta return to Sinai.
Okay.
Israel was not Rome's creation. It was Yah's creation.
Okay, now I'm going to write that down. Hold on a second. Israel was not Rome's creation. All right, now, let me tell you how I interpret this here. Israel was not Rome's creation. But we have been taught that it was or it is. In other words, what we understand about the Bible, what we understand about Israel, what we understand about the Creator, what we understand about the Messiah, what we understand about the apostles, what we understand about the prophets, all comes from Rome.
It does.
And what you're doing is you are correcting that misunderstanding, and I'm being polite with that, right? Israel was birthed at Sinai. Torah governs Israel's birth and identity and constitution then and forever. Rome has nothing to do with this.
Nothing to do with it.
But what we're doing is we're continuing to follow Rome's interpretation of the text.
Because that's all we know. And to go beyond that requires diligence, requires a desire to understand who we are and whose we are. Israel was not Rome's creation. Israel is Yah's creation.
Yes.
And to be Israel, we must walk as Israel walked.
That's right.
In covenant and in obedience.
Covenant and obedience.
In faith.
That's right. That's right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let me read this. Let me see if I can find this. Let's see.
What you chewing on over there? What you thinking?
I'm thinking Jeremiah 12.
Okay.
I'm thinking Jeremiah 12. I want to go back to our Father, and I want to analyze what he says about Israel and the nations. Okay. Okay, so that I'm going to go to Jeremiah chapter 12, and I'm going to pick it up at verse 14.
Okay.
And I'm going to read this from the New Living Translation. Let's just see how this reads and see certainly if this harmonizes with our thesis and essay. Jeremiah 12, verse 14. Now this is what Yah says, I will uproot from their land all the evil nations, reaching out for the possession I gave my people Israel. These are the nations who are trying to, occupy Israel, subjugate the indigenous people, the Israelites, etc. So Yah's responding to it. He says, and I will uproot Judah from among them. So he's going to uproot Judah, who have been scattered throughout the nations, right? They're in the diaspora. He says, and I will uproot Judah from among them. But afterward, I will return and have compassion on all of them. I will bring them home to their own lands. Again, each nation to its own possession. And if these nations truly learn the ways of my people, the ways of my people, this is a reference to Israel.
Mm-hmm.
The nations have to learn the ways of Israel. Well, where did Israel learn their ways? Where did they get their ways from? Their ways came from Sinai. And if these nations truly learn the ways of my people, and if they learn to swear by my name, saying, as surely as Yah lives, just as they taught my people to swear by the name of Baal, then they will be given a place among my people. We're still talking about the nations. And the nations have to come to Elohim through Israel. And I think we stated this earlier, maybe in a previous episode, when Yeshua said to the Samaritan woman, you don't know who you worship. You don't even know who God is. You don't even know who the Creator is. But we know who we worship. For salvation comes through Israel, right? And so here we have a prophetic utterance from Jeremiah, verse 17. But any nation who refuses to obey me will be uprooted and destroyed. I, Yah, have spoken. So this is beautiful because we transition from Isaiah 56 to now Jeremiah chapter 12. Your thesis certainly underscores this. Everybody is saying the very same thing. The only one who says something different is Rome, right? And we're looking at the progeny of the Roman church, which are going to be the Protestants, the Restorationists, even, Black Hebrew Israelism in many facets, right, are teaching elements of Roman theology, right? When everything is supposed to be Hebraic in nature, right? Because this is our identity, this is our origin from Sinai. What say you?
Well, again, I'm thinking of a part two.
Okay.
And you may have to co-write this one because you're bringing out a bunch of passages with Isaiah and Jeremiah that confirms Israel's nationhood. Their nationhood is spiritual, it's covenant-based, it's not political, it's not territorial. Yah's judgment and his restoration prove that Israel's identity is tied to covenant obedience. Not simply to land, possession, or lineage. This passage in Jeremiah aligns with part one's thesis that Israel became a nation at Sinai, not through lineage, not through military conquest or self-rule. But that their nationhood is maintained only by the adherence to Yah's covenant.
That's correct. Right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's very revealing, Arikel, because Elohim is not a divisive being. The scriptures tells us that Elohim is the creator of all flesh. He is the God of all flesh, and it is his desire to save all flesh. But this salvation and redemption, the constitutionality of righteousness and holiness, comes through the processes that he has established at Sinai, conveyed to us through Moses, the prophets, reinforced by Yeshua and the apostles. It cannot be negotiated, right? And this is where the arrogance and the hubris comes in from human beings, especially those within the Western Eurocentric clergy and Judaism. I mean, you can basically name all of these different doctrines and denominations that contest the birth narrative of Israel. Anyway, do you have anything else? Because I think this is just some substantive items. What I'm looking at is this: we are Israel based upon your essay, the birth narrative. We're Israel because we're born at Sinai, redeemed in Jerusalem. We live to image the Father as he intended Adam to image, right? So we live this spiritual ethos through Sinaitic obedience in the faith of Yeshua, who is our Messiah and intercessor. the Most High gave him these roles, designated him as such. Sinai requires perfection. Leviticus 18:5.
Yes, it does.
I've given you my commandments so that you may find eternal life through them. Sadly, as you have been saying, we broke the covenant.
We violated it.
Yeah. So Leviticus 18:5 becomes, how would you say, a vanity statement, because it's not something that we have been able to achieve, but one person achieved it. And this is Yeshua. And so when you talk about reconciliation at Jerusalem, that's very, very important, because Yeshua brings us into now the new covenant, Jeremiah 31:31, but it's the very same tenets that emanate from Sinai.
Exactly.
Now we have the law that's going to be written upon our mind, our heart. We're looking at an intrinsic desire to meet the expectations that the Most High has set before us at Sinai, knowing that as a human being, our failings are essentially guaranteed. We're going to miss the mark from time to time. But the Most High is faithful to impute to us Yeshua's righteousness. And we enter into that righteousness in Jerusalem where he was crucified, right? So the way you have constructed this is so beautiful. You reminded us of who we are and whose we are and how to live up to the expectations that the Most High has set before us when he birthed us as a nation, my sister. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
You know, this means a lot coming from you. You know, this essay wasn't just about history or theology. I know you're a history buff. So
I love history.
And this story is rich in history. But it isn't just about history or theology. This essay was about identity.
Okay.
Who we are.
That's the way to bring it back.
Yeah. Who we are and whose we are. As you so beautifully stated. We are Israel, not by accident, not by human decree, but by covenant.
Yes.
And that covenant given to us at Sinai, renewed in Jerusalem, is what defines us. It calls us to walk in obedience, to embody Yah's righteousness, and to reflect his holiness in this world that we live in.
Right.
If this essay served as a reminder of that truth, then all praise to Yah.
Praise Yah.
Because in a world that seeks to erase, distort, and redefine Israel's identity, we must stand firm in what is written.
Yes.
We are his. And as long as we remain in him, walking in faith and obedience, our inheritance is secure.
Yes.
Y'all, the bag is secure, okay?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Arya, thank you for this space. Thank you for this conversation and for the work that you do in keeping the Sinaitic light shining. Thank you. Praise Yah.
Well, I just want to thank you because reading your essays, listening to your essays gives me an opportunity to reflect on a lot of things. Like I said before, I'm reading what you have written here, and you stated, well, look, you're pulling these quotes right from my essay because it's rich, and so it allows me to see the necessity to further my studies in these areas in order to present a more salient, substantive argument about who we are as a people, who we are as individuals, right? So you keep up the great work. I'm looking forward to as many essays that you can, pump out while Elohim has given us this grace of time and mercy, compassion. Everyone, that's it. That's a wrap. We're going to let our sister go. I want to thank you all for tuning into NCCI Sinaitic Podcasts and Essays. And as always, Sister Arikel, thank you for the time that you give to us. Our producer, Sister Kalaya is like, look, you guys need to cut this time down, but we have fun.
We have so much fun.
I can't do this in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and so forth, because there's so much to uncover. But we try, Sister Kalaya. We're trying. Maybe one day we'll get there. I just don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
But I do want to thank listeners for tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
This essay is rich. This essay will... it's a hug.
Yeah.
It's a hug from Elohim.
Yes, it is.
It's a reminder of who we are.
Yeah.
And where we came from.
Yes. Praise Yah. Brothers and sisters, if you would like to have more information on this topic, please visit our website or enroll in our Sinaitic Light Bible Study program, which is free to you. This is a beautiful essay titled Birth of a Nation, the Covenant, the Constitution, and the Messiah. And Arikel came down to sit with us for, maybe about an hour. Look, we're going to see you in our next Sinaitic podcast and essay. May the blessings of Yah be with you. Please get information. Please get knowledge. Internalize Elohim's word. Use it to transform you into the being that he expects us to be, to glorify his holy name. May the blessings of Yah be with you, and we will see you at our next interview of Sinaitic Podcasts and Essays. Shalom.
Shalom, y'all.